We know that you've been sort of beating the drum on immigration reform for quite some time. You're meeting with the president. What did you get out of that? What did you come away with?
Well, I think obviously the White House, the president, is very strong in support of comprehensive immigration reform, and I think other voices from other communities, including the business community, the faith community, have joined to really link arms and say it's now time for this country to get the right policies around immigration passed. It's not just a problem that we need to solve, which is how some people view it, but I think also an opportunity we need to seize if we're going to remain the leading economy in the world, the most innovative entrepreneurial economy, where we've got to win this global battle for talent. So it's great that the Senate passed with broad bipartisan support legislation a few weeks ago.
Right.
Now it turns to the House, and hopefully in the coming weeks, the House leadership will figure out a path forward so this can pass and we can get this done once and for all.
But I think even you know, Steve, that talking about the economic benefits of immigration, the number of jobs created, the added wealth effect in this country is not going to bring Republicans onto reform.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think there are a lot of different ways to look at this, but I think Republicans are very focused on the economy, very focused on trying to be pro-business, and there's nothing more pro-business than winning this global battle for talent. So I think there are a lot of Republicans, as we saw in the Senate, a third of the Republicans supported the comprehensive immigration reform bill, so the two-thirds of the overall Senate supported, two-thirds of the overall country supported
right, but
it. There's a lot of voice in the Republican Party who do believe dealing with this makes sense. My guess is if the Senate bill went to the House floor tomorrow, it probably would pass with a slight margin because there would be several dozen Republicans that do support it. So the House has to figure out its path.
Wait, hang on. What tells you that?
There are a number of Republicans I've talked to who do believe that the economy is central and talent related to immigration is central and do want to deal with this issue. So the House will have its own process. I think it likely will be different bills that are passed independently, and then it'll have to go into conference with the Senate. But I'm still optimistic that something can get done in the next couple months. If you asked me a year ago what's the probability that comprehensive immigration reform would pass the Senate with broad bipartisan support, I think most people would say it's close to zero.
But it's not the Senate. It's the House, Steve. It's the House.
It is the House, and it's much more complicated, and there's all kinds of different dynamics, and people are trying to make different assessments. But it's not just trying to figure out what the political calculus is around the Latino vote, which some people are focused on. It's also what the political calculus is around the business vote, the entrepreneurship vote, and more importantly, what's best for the nation to make sure we have a robust economy and really remain a magnet for talent in the sectors that are going to drive the growth and drive the future of the country. I think there's broad recognition of that,
right.
And so I'm hopeful they can figure out a path forward. It's also worth remembering, and particularly my Republican friends, of which I have many Republican friends, that 30 years ago, when I first moved to Washington, D.C., President Reagan was president. He wanted to pass legislation that would change the tax plan. Republicans broadly supported it. It passed the Congress because the Democrats did not put in place a hazard majority, the majority kind of rule. If they had done that, that tax plan wouldn't have passed. So I think we've got to let the democracy work. The House has to do its own thing. But I'm hopeful the leadership will figure out that this really is important, and a lot of people in the business community care about it. A lot of people in the faith community care about it.
Well,
and a lot of people in the country care about it.
Yes. I think a lot of the economic arguments from the Republicans we have talked to who have opposed the reform have said, look, we can see clearly what the economic benefits are, but they're hooked on, or they're stuck on, this idea of how do they offer citizenship, a path to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented workers, immigrants here in the United States. And there's no agreement on that part. And if there is an agreement on that part, it's going to be very difficult to get comprehensive reform passed.
Well, I agree with your assessment, but I think the Senate had the same issue 2 months ago and figured out a way to knit together a coalition to support that path to citizenship, also support beefing up border security, and also having a strong component around high-skilled immigration. So the House has to do its own work, and it will make some changes, make some adjustments. The Gang of Eight proposed something in the Senate. The Judiciary Committee made some changes. 100 amendments passed. Then on the Senate floor, additional amendments passed. The House will make some changes. Maybe there's ways to improve the border security or improve the path to citizenship. But one way or another, we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Otherwise, we run the risk of losing our innovative entrepreneurial economy.
Would you be okay, though, if we did this in piecemeal fashion? I mean, what if we just can't get comprehensive reform? What if we just pass certain parts of it?
Well, I've been arguing for immigration reform around high-skilled immigration for over a decade, and many of my colleagues in the tech sector, the entrepreneurial sector, have as well. But if you notice, it hasn't passed in a decade. I think part of the reason for that is if you deal with these things as standalone issues, you don't have the broad coalition to get these things passed. So I do think the House will likely take a path of independent legislation dealing with specific issues, but then I think it will have to come together as some kind of comprehensive bill in conference with the Senate to get anything passed. I think the likelihood of getting standalone bills passed is very low. It's really why it hasn't happened in a decade. So if you care about high-skilled immigration, the way to get that done is to support a more comprehensive solution.